I don't have any folders here, so create what they call a repository, or what's called a repository in here. Now this is really just a view. Now I know when I file my documents, I want them to be filed probably by customer and project. So I'm going to use my customer and project view. And what's going to happen when I create my repository, it's going to recreate this view structure in Outlook. So I'm just going to go into M files. I'm going to copy that view structure. I'm going to tell it I want to create a new repository. I'll add that, paste that view structure in, and just say this is customer and projects. I could tell it what I want to sync, because now what it's going to do when I create this is it's going to sync information between M files and Outlook. And by default, it's going to sync everything. I could just sync the headers only if I have a lot of information. I only want to get the header information, and maybe it'll download the document on request. Here, I'll just set it to full items, which is inheriting from the settings. So it's going to create this, and like I said, it's immediately going to start syncing that structure. So this structure is the same exact structure as my view structure, essentially. And so I have A&A Consulting, I have my projects under there, and it's going to start. All my information is going to sync, either headers or full documents. And at this point, I could actually treat this almost like an M-Files client. I could check documents out. I could see the properties of a document the same way I would in M-Files. So it's sort of, in this style, it's kind of an embedded UI experience as well. So now I can take a look at some options. Back into my options, I will see that automatically file replies is ticked. This is what's going to automatically do the luggage, the filing of luggage tag emails. And when I send a new email, I want to give myself the option of sending and tagging. And so I'm going to set that. Okay. So now that that's set up, that's really it. We can do a lot of things now. So we can, if I just want to file an email. So let's say I got an email and I want to file it. I could go to quick file, or I could right click and say quick file. And the first time I do it, it's going to do that. But now I could just start filing, and I know what client, CBH, and it's for this project. And all I had to do is start typing in the client's name, and it's going to file.
And you recommend copying it?
It's up to the customer. If you move it, it's actually going to take it out of their inbox and put it into here. If they copy, it's here and it's here. And so it depends. Some people like it in both places. Some people just want to move it into M files, and that's up to them. So right now, all I did was file that document, and you can see that it's been filed and it's marked as filed, and it tells you where it was filed to. Outlook is able to fill in all of the required properties. It won't prompt me with the metadata card. But if it does hit a document where there is a required property that's not being filled out from those default settings or from the path that I'm in, because it can inherit the customer and the project here, if it still can't fill in all the default properties based on that, it'll prompt me for the metadata card. So okay. The next time I try to save a document, if I try to quick file a document, let's do that again to the same place. Whoops, let's copy that. It won't be able to resolve case, so it's going to prompt me with the metadata card and say I need to fill in case. The other stuff is going to populate automatically, but I'll just fill it in and create. So that's how sometimes you see the metadata card, sometimes you don't. It's just that case. So it will only, same thing, it'll only inherit what it's getting from this view structure. So I'll actually show you. So if we create a new email, let's create a new email, and we're gonna tag this one when we send it. So all replies will get automatically filed. I'll send it to this user, and I'll also test of tagged email. I'm going to send and tag that, and That's what I have the option here. So what it's going to do is one thing it's going to file it here, and it's also going to tag it so any replies also get filed here. And so I'll hit that send and tag. If I look at my sent folder, this will get filed in a second, but you can also see that I added this tag to the subject. Now that's what's going to tell mFiles where to put it when it comes back. So that tag gets created automatically. It's basically the ID of the project and the ID of the customer, or the other way around. So if I'm that user that just got that email, that's this user, and I reply to this email, this reply should get filed automatically because it's tagged. And so if I come back up here, eventually that email will come in. Here it comes. And then the next time that my Outlook syncs with mFiles, this will get tagged automatically. I don't have to do anything. Might take a minute or two, but that'll work on its own. That's how automatic filing works. It just synced right there, so it just saved it. It's if you are only doing header information, you could sync pretty frequently without damaging information, because at this point, all you're really syncing is data. If you are syncing full items, that could slow it down, because at that point, you're syncing the actual physical documents too. Most people, I suggest they only sync the header data, and then what would happen is if I only synced header data, if I clicked on a document, it would download this document from mFiles. The reason I'm able to view it so quickly now is because I'm syncing all information, so it's actually opening it from Outlook. So it would just syncing header information makes the whole sync process much faster and less impact on performance, but it makes clicking on a document and viewing it a little bit slower because it's downloading the document every time I click on it. One other cool thing with the quick file attachments is if it's like a contract, and you let's say you had a contract in mFiles, and you sent it out to somebody, they marked it up and they sent it back. What you could do is, if you quick file attachments, you know where you want it to go. Maybe it's a recent location. So a lot of times you're just working with the same clients and the same projects, and let me do a different one. See if I have a different. Let's just use this one. It's a modified version of this document that's already in mFiles. And what you could do is, when you save it, you get a choice. You can either save that attachment as a new document, or I could save it as a new version of an existing document. So let's say it's just a markup version of this contract. I could just save it as a new version. It'll just version that existing document with that attachment. So it's kind of a nice feature for when you're going back and forth with somebody on that kind of stuff. But that's really it. I mean, that's the advantage is, you have your folders. You don't have to use your folders. Most people just quick file, and they, once you start typing in the name of the customer, I get the customer I could file against, or I could file against one of the customer's projects, and it's kind of that easy. So if the view structure was set up so Juan only saw the cost centers he worked with, I only saw the cost centers I worked with. When this got created on Juan's computer, only his cost centers would show up here, because that's what he would see in his view. And when it came on my computer, only my cost centers would show up here, because that's what was created in my view. So if you could do it in an mFiles view, then if you could figure out how to do it in an mFiles view, then you could essentially do it here, because this is just reproducing that view essentially. And then the tag is built on the structure of the view that you're seeing essentially. So I don't know if you know, but soon we're releasing a release of smart metadata called automatic metadata, where it not only gives you metadata suggestions, it actually, if it meets a certain threshold, it'll autofill that metadata for you. Soon we'll start applying that to email as well. so that it doesn't have to totally rely on the settings in here. So you don't have to set, like one default class. It doesn't totally have to rely on here or on, the view structure. It could try to figure out metadata using one of our intelligence services. So that's kind of coming. The other major one is if I look at this, these emails that I saved, and actually if I look at them, let's look at them in M files. If I look at these emails, I see that I sent an email, somebody replied to that email and it got filed, and maybe I'd forward that email and it got filed. In M files, they're just showing up as completely separate emails. Soon, what we're going to do is thread those emails together, so it's part of the same email chain, the same way Outlook does. We're not currently doing that in M files, but that's going to be the kind of next step, as well as making those thread in M files as well. The other major one would be, and this one's actually coming fairly soon, is support for Outlook Mobile and Outlook Web. So right now it works in the Outlook desktop client. There's also a version that's pretty much done. That's going to also support Outlook Mobile and Outlook Web. The mobile web component, that's based on a hosted component that should actually come in July. The threading and the intelligence services, that's going to come probably, if not the end of this year, the beginning of next year would be, because that's a major release. There'll be a lot of smaller improvements between those two, but those are the major things.